de todos los días. Puedo incluir como algo nuevo. Y estoy es una motivation for the years to have dedicated their lives learning our stories and the ability to communicate. En la literatura para narrativa. El presidente y fundador de Narrative N4 ha liderado una revolución en la forma en la que compartimos escritos. Se creó en Dublín, Irlanda, ha recibido numerosos premios internacionales, incluyendo el National Book Award y el International Review. Estas novelas y traducciones Paul McCann is a luminary in the world of literature and visionary in the field of storytelling. As the president and co-founder of Narrative N4, he has led a revolution in how we share and understand stories. Born and raised in Dublin, Ireland, he has received numerous international awards, including the National Book Award and the International Dublin Impact Prize. With 7 novels and collections of stories published in over 40 languages, his
Lisa, in column, do you hear me? Yes, right? You're not in frame. I don't know. I think you're listening.
The reason I have all that space up is because I like. Good morning. Hola.
We can't hear you.
I don't. Okay, great. I don't.
Hi, Lisa, and hi, Colum. Can you hear us? Just give us a thumbs up if you can hear us.
Starts 6 minutes. Good morning. Buenos dias. Perfect.
I can't see. Seriously, do I look-
Does my hair look okay? That's very nicely done, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what they just said. It's oh, here we go.
Buenos días a todos y bienvenidos a esta conferencia excepcional que promete ser un verdadero festín para las mentes y los corazones de todos los entusiastas de la narración. Es un honor estar aquí ante ustedes para presentar a dos figuras extraordinarias que han dedicado sus vidas a explorar el poder de las historias y su capacidad para transformar el mundo que nos rodea. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this exceptional conference that promises to be a true feast for the minds and hearts of all storytelling enthusiasts. It is an honor to be here before you to introduce two extraordinary figures who have dedicated their lives to exploring the power of stories and their ability to transform the world around us. Colum McCann es una eminencia en el mundo de la literatura y un visionario en el campo de la narración. Como presidente y cofundador de Narrative N4, ha liderado una revolución en la forma en la que compartimos y entendemos las historias. Nacido y criado en Dublín, Irlanda, ha recibido numerosos premios internacionales, incluyendo el National Book Award y el International Dublin Impact Prize. Colum McCann is a luminary in the world of literature and a visionary in the field of storytelling. As the president and co-founder of Narrative N4, he has led a revolution in how we share and understand stories. Born and raised in Dublin, Ireland, he has received numerous international awards, including the National Book Award and the International Dublin Impact Prize. Con 7 novelas y 3 colecciones de relatos publicadas en más de 40 idiomas, su influencia es verdaderamente global. Su obra, incluyendo su aclamada última novela, A Paragon, ha resonado en lectores de todo el mundo. Hoy, estamos encantados de tenerlo aquí para compartir su sabiduría sobre el poder de la narración. Colum McCann, with 7 novels and 3 collections of stories published in over 40 languages, his influence is truly global. His work, including his acclaimed latest novel, A Paragon, has resonated with readers around the world today. We are delighted to have him here to share his wisdom with the power of storytelling. Junto a Colum, tenemos a una líder y visionaria igualmente destacada, Lisa Consiglio. Como directora ejecutiva y cofundadora de Narrative N4, ha canalizado su experiencia en liderazgo, gestión, recaudación de fondos, marketing y comunicación corporativa en la creación de una organización dedicada incansablemente a transformar vidas a través de las historias. Alongside Colum, we have an equally distinguished leader and visionary, Lisa Consiglio. As CEO and co-founder of Narrative N4, she has channeled her leadership, experience in management, fundraising, marketing, and corporate communication into creating an organization tirelessly dedicated to transforming lives through stories. Con más de 30 años dedicados al desarrollo de organizaciones humanísticas, Lisa ha aplicado su pasión por las narrativas en campos que van desde las artes hasta la tecnología, desde la educación hasta la política pública. Su visión y compromiso con la creencia en el poder de las historias nos inspiran a todos hoy. With over 30 years dedicated to developing humanistic organizations, Lisa has applied her passion for narrative in fields ranging from the arts of technology, from education to public policy. Her vision and commitment to the belief in the power of stories will inspire us all today. Con su experiencia de vida abarcando diversas partes del mundo, Lisa aporta una perspectiva verdaderamente global a nuestra conversación de hoy. With her life experience spanning various parts around the world, Lisa brings a truly global perspective to our conversation today. Estamos a punto de embarcarnos en un viaje fascinante y enriquecedor, guiado por dos líderes indiscutibles en el mundo de la narración y la transformación social. Su charla, titulada La historia del sí, el origen del Narrative N4 y su 10º aniversario, mostrará el viaje que esta notable organización ha experimentado en la última década. We are about to embark on a fascinating and enriching journey, guided by two undisputed leaders in the world of storytelling and social transformation, Their talk, titled The Story of Yes, The Origin of Narrative 4 and its 10th anniversary, will showcase the journey this remarkable organization has experienced over the last decade. Lisa and Colum, you have the floor.
I truly humbled, and we're deep for your introduction and the time that everybody has put into this incredible conference. We've been hearing wonderful things coming back. We're here in New York, and but it feels like there's this wonderful global connection.
Thank you. Hola. Gracias. Thank you so much for that incredible introduction. Far too kind. And I just want to shout out the entire team, Maru, Carla, Lee for the keynote, and everyone there. Santiago, you've all been incredible. So this is such an honor. And I know we're here to tell you a little bit about the origin of Narrative 4 and how people said yes, why people said yes, why we started this, and why it's so incredibly important to continue this mission and as quickly as we possibly can. In Mexico, you're leading the way. Well done. What an A team. So thank you so much again. And we'll be happy to answer questions, or if anyone wants to put anything in the chat or ask us anything, we're here and we're excited to be here.
And so one of the things that we have done for the 10th anniversary is that we have produced, got to get the camera right, a book of yes. And it includes some of our great luminaries, including this young lady here beside us. And we have the great musician Sting, whom I hope you can see, because I'm not sure if my camera angles are very good here. What we did was we answered a series of questions as to why the word yes. And I'm just going to read a few of them for you and try and let them resound, because I think these will resound down through the conversation as we go along. As I said, deeply humbled to be here, deeply humbled to get a chance to talk with you, and I'm in great admiration of all your work. Yes, because stories stitch us together. Yes, because stories can stop time. Yes, because we have a duty to listen. Yes, because life is too short to be only you. Yes, because stories verify experience. Yes, because an ounce of empathy is worth a ton of judgment. Yes, because the possible occurs within the impossible. Yes, because no is boring. Yes, because we need to recapture belief. Yes, because one story is never enough. Yes, because stories shoulder the world. Yes, because change is driven by dialogue. And yes, because we cannot experience what is not there.
That is a collection of quotes. Colum really spearheaded the Book of Yes, and so I give extra kudos to him. It is an incredible legacy. It's a real commemoration of 10 years of yes. And part of what we wanted to tell you or talk a little bit about today is how this organization was started by a series of a slew of people saying yes. And one of the very first, when I came, sort of had this very soft idea at the time about what would become Narrative 4 was back in 2004. And I met Colum in New York City totally by accident. And he was on stage with two other Irish authors here in New York City at Ireland House. And I listened to the three of these incredible authors and thought, I want to take that. I want this literary heritage. I want to inspire kids to get excited about reading about what Colum's writing. Frank McCourt, who wrote Angela's Ashes, talks about a lot about the famine in Ireland and his experience. And it just mesmerized me. And so I basically approached Colum in 2004, almost 20 years ago, and said, I have this organization that I'm running. Will you help me create a festival where we're highlighting Irish authors, and then we will move to Mexico, and then we'll go to the American South, and then to 7 countries in the Middle East and so forth. And we did that. He said yes. And he and Frank McCourt said yes in 2004. 2005, we presented the literary heritage of Ireland. We went around the world, met all these incredible, great, brought all these authors into this tiny Colorado town, and realized how quickly these voices, these spirits, these words could lift up students in a way that they weren't necessarily feeling in their classrooms. And so Colin might want to tell you a little bit about why he said yes, but we went on to form this collaboration over 9 years. And in 2012, 13, we realized we've got a global organization with a bunch of authors from all over the world. We've got a mission. We have a strategy. We've got some funding. And a lot of people from then on said yes, including the amazing Maru, and Lee, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Sure. And, one of the reasons I said yes is that I learned at a very early age, just out of university, in fact, about the power of stories and storytelling. I grew up in Ireland, and I came to the United States to try to write a novel. I was 21 years old, and I failed. I failed badly, and I didn't know what to do. But part of me knew that I didn't know the world well enough. So I took off on a bicycle, of all things, starting on the east coast of the United States, all the way down to New Orleans, into Texas, into Mexico, around the Chihuahuan Desert, back up through the Chihuahuan Desert, into New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, eventually finished in San Francisco a year and a half later, a changed person. And the reason I was changed was because I met people who had stories to tell. And I learned how to listen. And I was given a great lesson in the dignity of listening. And so I tried to put all of that into my work over the succeeding years. I tried to put some of that listening and storytelling in there. But there was always something behind the work that felt vaguely unsatisfactory. Yes, I love writing books. Yes, I love literature. Yes, I think literature can change the world. But I also knew that, I didn't just want to go to festivals and have people, slap me on the back and talk to other writers and live in a cocooned world. I wanted a bigger world, a much wider world. And so when Lisa came to this, and asked me to join up with this idea that she had, and really she's the brains and the brawn behind it all. I said yes, because I knew that it would change things. And then we started to develop this program where we get people to step into one another's shoes, and you tell my story, and I tell yours. And when that happened, I felt that there was a nuclear force occurring, and that this had been a natural progression for me coming from Ireland, wanting to tell stories, getting on the road, telling stories, and then learning then how to tell the stories of other people at the same time too.
And I think that Colin has said it. He's a big fan of the one of the greatest novels of all time, Ulysses. And the last word is yes. And it is the most arguably, I guess, but the most positive word in any language. And I think that because we had so many yeses early on, that it almost felt like the universe was saying yes in a way. It was just it was like the world needs this so badly. And you've created all these relationships with authors, with artists, with educators. You're seeing what's the power of students and how much power young people have that is not being harnessed right now, not through media, not through politics, as we see around the globe. And so one of the things that, when Colin and I talked this through really over 10 years, we started kind of looking at philanthropists and seeing where they were landing, and authors, as we said, and every single one literally said yes. One of the most powerful moments was when we created Narrative 4 officially in 2013. You've heard from him. He's your keynote speaker. We had the absolute privilege and honor, and I'll probably tear up, of Colin can tell the story. I think he told you a little bit about it already. Lee did. of meeting Lee Keelock within weeks after the mass shooting at Sandy Hook in Connecticut. And Lee is a fabulous teacher, still is a fabulous teacher, teacher of the year many times over in Newtown High School. And somehow the universe smiled upon us and said yes. And we met Lee. Colin will tell you the story a little bit more in his words, but I think Lee was it was so crucial in the growth and the energy, and he connected with people in Tampico, Mexico almost immediately. But Lee said yes. We'll tell you a little bit more in our words how, against all odds. We had no money in the bank. He had 4 young boys. He had a wife. He had a great job. And he said yes immediately in 2013 to Narrative 4. The idea that in a broken community such as Sandy Hook and Newtown at the time, he saw how incredibly powerful this could be around the world. And Lee, with his community's blessing, his family's blessing, joined Narrative 4 as our first official employee, and is still with us today, Global Programs Director, knocking it out of the park and introducing us to great people around the world. That was an incredibly powerful moment. And Colin will tell the story, and I'll kind of riff off of it, because it is, since he's there in the room with you, you can ask him more questions about why he said yes. But it really was that I knew I had an incredible, above and beyond Colin even, I had an incredible partner who was going to drive an empathy mobile from town to town and do whatever it was going to take to get this organization off the ground. And he did.
You know, and so many things get born out of tragedy. On December the 12th, 2000 and December 14th, rather, 2012, as you know, a terrible massacre occurred in Sandy Hook in Connecticut, and 26 people lost their lives. And Lee Keelock was a teacher at the local high school, and he had read a book that I had written, and he wrote to me, and this letter still brings tears to my eyes too. And he said to me, actually, I can read you a little part of the letter. Dear Mr. McCann, he doesn't call me Mr. McCann anymore, by the way. Dear Mr. McCann, I am writing to you with a heavy heart and the human instinct for recovery and joy. I am an English teacher at Newtown High School, Sandy Hook, Connecticut, who, like so many others, is currently dealing with ways to inspire our students in the wake of such trauma. Bottom line, I need your help. We need your help. Perhaps more than help, we need your vision. And I was completely taken by this, and I got the chance to go up to Lee's school and to talk with the young people. And we realized that this gift of storytelling was also something that could bring about a form of healing. And from that moment on, really, Narrative 4 was truly born certainly in my conception of it, in the sense that I have always believed that stories can inspire change, and stories can inspire action, and they can bring a greater good to the world. Stories can be difficult too. Stories can do terrible things. They can take away your house. They can take away your country. They can take away your nation. They can take away your identity. But stories, when properly dealt with, can be a miracle as well. And in the right hands, they can work tremendous things. And I began to see Lee Keelock doing these tremendous things, and we began to think then, Lisa and I, well, can we bring this to many other places? Surely this thing will replicate itself, because if the world is built of anything other than molecules or atoms, of course, if the world is built of anything, it is built of stories, and everyone has a story. Every single one of you out there today has a profound story to tell. And that's the part of the energy that we have wanted to access over these past 10 years.
I think when I think of yes too, and some of the, Lee Keelock was absolutely instrumental. And again, just saying yes in 2013, but in 2012, when we brought authors from all over the world to a small Colorado town to go through a story exchange, and one of those authors, this is a 5-day summit, on the third day, one of them said, "You just split the atom. What are you going to do with it?" And one of the people who heard that was Jackie Bezos. Most of you, I'm sure, have heard of Amazon. This is Jeff Bezos's mother, who was watching this tiny little program unfold before her eyes. And she actually was in the room the day after these authors went through the story exchange. And nobody knew who she was. And she's sitting there saying, giving us feedback and gently saying, one of the things I'm going to encourage you to do as someone who loves education and kids, I'm going to encourage you to go global. Don't just be in the United States, whatever you do, because once you hit the Atlantic or the Pacific or a border, it will be very difficult for you to move forward. And we took that advice, and we said yes to her. She continues to say yes to us every single day with advice and financial support and so forth. But that was key, because what happened immediately, when Lee was hired, so many people in Mexico were coming to him and saying, how can we help after Sandy Hook? And so there were these relationships that were formed across these borders that we all put up as human beings for some reason. And so there was Tampico, there was Port Elizabeth, South Africa, there was Limerick, Ireland. The list goes on. And so all of these people started. We just got split. Oh, hi. Hi. It's so much more fun to be able to see you now. We can just see us. We're getting a little bit of ambient noise, but we'll continue and you can open it up for questions. But I just wanted to say again, we've had thousands and thousands and thousands of yeses. We've had some pretty tough no's too, but they'll come back. They'll say yes eventually.
And so, I mean, I think one of the things that's really important to talk about is the bravery of saying yes, and that it's not. It's so much easier to say no at times, and to turn yourself away, turn your face away from what's going on in the world. We're living in very difficult times. This is, you don't need to be told that, but it is profoundly and disturbingly true that, in particular now, it seems that these broken times are calling out for some form of repair. Increasingly, we're hiding away, and we're all certain of ourselves, and we want to, you can only come into the room if you look like me, or you can only come into the room if you sound like me, or you can only come into the room if you vote like me, and that's a narrow world. And what stories can do is broaden the world. I often say it's about broadening the lungs of the world, because I'm not a fan of this certainty. I'm not a fan, even though when you say yes, there's a certainty to that. Yes also involves a certain amount of the embrace of another world that you want to go into. So for me, storytelling is a form of adventure making. Storytelling is a way to explore the world in new and profound ways outside of myself. Frankly, I'm bored with myself. I don't want to spend all day with myself. I have to, but I much rather be in the sphere of other people and other lives, and to see how it is that we can connect, because the world is deeply, deeply connected. Without connection, we are absolutely nothing. And so one of the things that we have to do in these difficult times is to be brave enough to step up and to start to connect with one another. That's one of the objectives of Narrative 4.
And we're 10 years, as you know, this is our 10th year celebration. And when we started, we knew, because we had seen the power of, as I said earlier, of students. And yes, we knew we had to be artist driven to some degree. We wanted to open paths. We did it right, we think. We wanted to open up various communities with artists who had connections that politicians sometimes just can't quite bring to the table, more nuanced way. And we also knew we wanted to be in schools and community programs. So we were going to be educator shaped. But this organization is student driven. We have an incredibly powerful digital platform. We've gone from one person, me, to 2 people, Lee, and now we have over 50 full-time employees. We have people all over, including Carla and Maru, all over the world who, again, said yes. And they are standing by, I know, and doing all of this incredible work. When I saw that billboard, by the way, Carla and Maru said, I talk about the power of saying yes. But this is all yours. This organization was designed to be led by students. The power of your ideas, the lack of apathy. We have all the technology in the world, all the technology we need to be connected, and somehow we're lonelier and more isolated than ever before. And that tells you something. This is a great moment for all of you to say yes, to build campaigns on what you want to change in the world, to see each other as equals, to see everyone as a human being. We share this big, beautiful, gorgeous planet together. And there's so much we can do. Colin talks about the theory of emergence, and I know he'll tell you a little bit about that. And in just a minute, I know we're running a little bit short on time because we want to get some questions. Well,
Okay.
We'll see. We're taking directions from Maru and Carla. But yeah, just knowing that the power of all of you together. Narrative 4 is designed to equip and embolden young people, to give you the tools, whatever it takes to make the changes, whether it's in your classroom, in your community, in your country, or in the world. Not everybody's going to solve world hunger, but you might look and say, hey, you know what? I'm kind of tired of walking by this parking lot, and it could be a beautiful spot. I want to create a community garden and help feed people who can't feed them. Whatever it is, there are so many ways to get involved with Narrative 4, to learn from one another, to say, hey, I just connected with someone in South Africa. I just read this morning, they've gone 53 days without water. What is going on in this world? And how can we all collectively get together and solve some of these seemingly intractable problems that, again, politicians can't seem to do these days? I'm a big believer in democracy, big believer in the democracy of storytelling, and a huge believer in the power of youth to change this world.
Yeah, I think, Lisa talked about emergence, and there's a scientific theory of emergence that we are greater than the sum of our parts, which is kind of a fantastic notion. You can think of it often in terms of like flocking birds. One bird is beautiful. 3 birds working together is absolutely gorgeous. 1,000 birds working together in the air. They work together in this extraordinary way. They streamline things for each other. They save energy for one another. They protect one another. They make sure that they're not attacked in the same way. Sometimes you get flocks of birds that can be almost 500 million strong. This is about emergence, right? It also happens with honeybees. It also happens with flowers. It also happens actually in computer systems. But one of the places where we don't talk about it happening is in stories and storytelling and in peacemaking and in change. I think that we are greater than the sum of our parts. And when we use the power of our stories, not just one story, but dozens of stories, like the dozens of birds, or thousands of stories, like the thousands of birds, there's a latent power that's there. Now, this is something new. This is not, like old theory, or like we're pulling it out of thin air. For centuries, and certainly in the last decades, power has always come from on top. Power pushes down. Power tries to instruct. Power tries to create fear. Power does all these things. But I think that if we do this correctly, and if we can think our way through this positively, this power that comes from underneath, this democratic power that belongs to you, is something that can be harnessed to create change. Now, as Lisa said, the change can be small. It can be in that parking lot that gets turned into a community garden, or the change can be huge in a whole democratic movement, in a whole, shift in consciousness. And it's up to us to be able to harness the power of one another. But this is the important thing. We must be able to realize, access, and understand the other. Now, I spent a lot of time in Israel and Palestine. and I wrote a book about it called A Paragon. And the two men who I wrote about in the book, one is Israeli and one is Palestinian. And they're beautiful people, and they became the best of friends. But they have one very important thing, and I don't want to dwell too much on the political situation, but what they say to me is, or say to each other, look, we don't have to love each other. In fact, we don't have to like each other, though we wish that we could, but we must. We absolutely must begin to understand one another. Because if we don't understand one another, we are doomed. And it's a very powerful, powerful message. And it comes at the fundamentals of education, and it comes at the fundamentals of storytelling. Lisa talked about the students being incredibly powerful and the artists being incredibly powerful. And also both of us together want to add that the teachers, oh my word, we would be nowhere without the teachers, because they become the conduit between all of these different groups. And we are blessed to have people who become teachers or are teachers in all sorts of ways. So in that way, I want you to think about the emergence, about the power of your own emergence, and how the emergence can maybe work in your community, maybe work in your city, maybe even work in your country, or maybe even work spectacularly around the world. And by the way, I just want to say, one is not better than the other. Local is just as good as global.
Mm-hmm. Global.
The global, the tiny and the epic.
And I think there is so much to Colum's point. You read the news, you look, and it can feel like this world is in shambles. One of our students from Kentucky, I remember so well, before she found Narrative 4, she said, I thought this world was in shambles. There's nothing that I could do. And now now that I've become part of the Narrative 4 global community, I feel like there's nothing I can't do. And I think that because of the doom and gloom that is out there, a lot of times we just think, I don't have the power to do anything. What's one voice? And again, there's that emergence. And as Colum said, this organization is not about changing minds. It's about opening them. It's just about saying, I can hold on to my values. I don't have to become somebody else. I just need to maybe try and understand somebody else. We're so used to being in our own echo chambers and our own silos. And this is what's happening right now in politics in so many ways. And Narrative 4, with relying on the voices of young people and the actions of young people, is so crucial, because your thinking is so incredibly fresh. And here's the deal. Narrative 4 is fun. It's based on, as I'm sure Lee told you, it's based on curiosity, imagination, fun, connection, learning about someone you don't even have to leave your living room or your classroom to learn about all these people all over the world and realize you are not alone. You are not isolated. We don't want you to be, lonely. Narrative 4 is designed to combat all of that and to have a really good time doing it. And a lot of people think, I couldn't create a project and do it. You can. You absolutely can. And we've seen it as this has gone into pilot, and Lee can tell you more about that. He's in charge of civic engagement and done it beautifully, but you can. And what happens is one little tiny project, all of that success, there comes another project and another and another. And you realize that not only are you learning, but you're changing and you're doing. And that is what, and you're inspiring the rest of us who can't seem to get it done. So you are in charge. And that's the most exciting part for me.
Yeah. And a lot of people come to us and they say things like, I don't have a story. My immediate reaction is that everyone has a story, and everyone has a powerful story. It goes across borders, it goes across boundaries, it goes across stereotypes. It makes all of those things vanish. And it doesn't have to be a spectacular story. It can be a story about your cup of coffee this morning, or it can be a story about a great global engagement. But everybody has a story. And the thing that's also very important about what we do and try to say is that none of us are one single story. We're so much more than one single thing. In a world that wants to atomize us now, in a world that wants to reduce us down to one single thing, you're only Irish, you're only Catholic, you're only straight, or you're all of these different things. in a world that wants to reduce us down, I think what stories do is they open up the world. And some of my favorite words right now, when it comes to talking about like ideas, politics, and you know, world events, is the ability to say, I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know. And I think the ability to admit that, and to admit that the world is complicated and difficult, is the jumping off point where we begin to sort of like really engage in proper change.
Yeah, and you all said yes, you're here. I am assuming, I hope that you believe and know there's a lot of hope out there, that there is a better world around the corner, and that this sort of climate that we're in, we've got to change some things. And we are excited that you are here, that you are saying yes, and that hopefully you walk away thinking, okay, I really want to get involved with this. I want to talk to my educators. I want to talk to my family. I want to talk to other people around the world and find out what this really is about. And you really are paving the way in so many ways for us to use this model that you're creating right now, take it to other communities around the world. So we're really going to be looking to you for vision and to continue to say yes.
Yeah, and in relation to hope, you know, yeah, it has to be daring. In certain ways, the best people are prepared to risk themselves. They risk sentiment. They risk honesty. They risk even embarrassment at times. You know, I believe in the value of optimism. Sometimes people sometimes people laugh at me. They think, oh, you're just optimist. That means that you're somehow soft, and you're soft in the head, and you're just, you know, you're naive. Or and then, but then when I get in with a cynic, I like to talk to the cynic and agree with the cynic, with everything that he or she says. Yes, the world is dark. Yes, the world is troubled. Yes, the world is dreary in so many ways. But so what? That's no great revelation. The cynics tend to think that that's a smart thing to say, and they finish their argument. I say, okay, yeah, you're correct. But so what? Now, the real bravery comes in moving away from that and discovering how you can actually change it. So I say to the cynics that they live in the cloud of their own sentimental understanding. It drives them nuts, by the way. It drives them completely barmy. Because if you tell a cynic that he or she is actually sentimental, they can't wrap their minds around it. But what I'm trying to say is that hope has a sort of I don't know, an agility to it. Hope has a muscularity. Hope has a difficulty. All of these things that are there that you face up against. This is not easy work, and these are not easy words to communicate, because so it's so easy to you know, throw bad stories around. The good stories don't get their play so much these days. But I suppose what I would charge myself, Lisa, Lee, Maru, all of you everywhere, charge you with the idea that you can use this difficulty to create a sort of profound change. And that means going across town. That means going somewhere that maybe you're not comfortable, either intellectually or socially, and trying to change things in on the ground as much as you can, in what I would call the pulse of the moment.
I just want to say that I agree. Everything Colin writes so beautifully about so many of these things, the theory of emergence and the Guardian, but also a couple of things that he just said. You know, a pessimist hits the dark and stops, and an optimist hits the dark and keeps on moving through it until they find the light. And that's the power of saying yes over and over and over. And what's the quote? Whatever, to fail, try.
No, oh yeah, this is Samuel Beckett. It's a great quote. Samuel Beckett, the Irish playwright, he said, "No matter, try again, fail better."
That's the power of saying yes. And so we are really, he also, Colin writes, wrote a while ago something called Peace Comes Dropping Slowly. And it's about in this case, the Irish peace process, and which took a very, very long time. And this is something that we're up against, right? It took how many years for that peace accord to be drafted, signed, and it can be totally just blown apart with one bullet. But we just keep going. We keep moving, and there's always that hope. There's always that we know we're better than that. We know we've got the power to end this stuff and to be better human beings and to thrive with hope and the power of saying yes.
Yeah, and that peace process in Northern Ireland largely came about from people who said yes, and also were willing to share stories with and through one another. You know, we have had 25 years of peace. It's shaky, a little bit shaky in Northern Ireland right now, but there has not been any major sectarian disruption. That's after 800 years. If you had told me 40 years ago, 50 years ago, that Ireland would be at peace, I would have said, there's no way. It just couldn't happen. But it happened in my lifetime, and I've got to see how it was shaped. And largely it was shaped by, well, coalitions of women's political groups, first and foremost, demanding change. And then people coming in from the outside, including Senator George Mitchell and others, and bringing people together in forums to talk about what the world could be if we decided to change it. You know, there are several miracles. I do believe that that's one of the great miracles of Irish history, and that change is actually possible there. The walls come tumbling down. The Berlin Wall came down. And this current escalation of violence, as awful as it is something that will also eventually end. It's how we end it. That's the big question. Peace is actually inevitable, but it's when it comes about and how it comes about, and the power of using your own storytelling and engagement to help shape that peace, because we can all do it.
We've talked at you for a very long time, which we can talk all day, Colin, and there was no shortage of words. They say here, you can talk the paint off the wall. We really can. We have endless stories, endless examples of yes, but we really want to hear from you. I don't know if this is a good time to open it up. I hope so. We've loved to have some questions or comments, or I mean, nothing is off, nothing at all. Is off the table. So feel free to ask us anything.
Thank you, Lisa and Colum. We're going to be taking questions from the live audience, and then we'll go to the live stream audience, if that's okay.
Great.
Fantastic.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Luis Carlos. What would be your advice to people who may have a great story that could make a positive change to their community, but can't find the courage to open up to the rest of the people?
Well, that's a truly profound question, because it is about courage. You know, in certain ways, I could answer that by saying I don't know, because I wouldn't know the actual individual situation. But my feeling is that if that person is even conscious of the fact that they need to tell the story, they just have to propel themselves to get the bravery to do it. And maybe just by discussing it with people around them, or bringing people together in a group with one another, and acknowledging that they're scared. That's a really important thing. And good.
Well, I was just going to say too, that's what Narrative 4 was designed to do. We built a very safe space for people. The facilitators are highly trained. Maru, Carla, these are people who understand the nuances of storytelling, that it can be very scary. I mean, it's very difficult to open up. And I've been going through story exchanges for 20 years, and I am terrified every single time I tell a new story or an old story, and how it's going to be received. But I think sometimes if a person goes through a story exchange, for instance, within Narrative 4's community, they walk away. It's designed for them to walk away feeling like they may not have told the story that you're talking about, but next time they will. They get braver and braver and braver, and that they'll tell whatever story they need to tell at the time. But eventually, what we found over and over is that people really do find that it is a brave space, and they can take risks and know that they are absolutely amongst people who care. And largely, probably one of the people in that group has gone through something similar. And so there goes the isolation, breaking down the barriers. Wait a minute, we're all human beings. We only have so many emotions. A lot of people have gone through whatever it is, and there's a spirit and a real just a community feeling and a love. I guess that's the right word too. A support structure there that is, that. So I don't know if that helps.
But I will also say this. I've written 13 books. I've written about all sorts of different subjects, and every time I get up to tell a story, I still feel a little nervous. But every time I go through the process, I feel completely cleansed. And I like that tension, and I think it's a good thing that there's a fair amount of tension, because the world is not necessarily ordered in A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Sometimes it comes to us a little bit muddled and a little bit messy, but I guarantee you that Lisa's answer is, if you go and you go through the Narrative 4 process, you will be allowed the courage, and you will find the courage to tell that particular story.
And just to end on that, the one thing, a lot of times we have problems going to a spouse or a partner or a family member or a best friend even to tell our deepest stories. And for some reason, when people go through story exchanges, they open up to the purest, just a stranger. It's because the judgment is just, it's game changing. It really is. And there's such a, you can still do it within a classroom. Of course, I mean, we want everyone to do that, but there is globally, there is something to there is definitely a power to telling a story to a stranger and hearing it from their perspective. And it softens the story for you as well.
Great. And thank you for your question.
Thank you. Also, thank you for speaking to us in English. I'm very sorry.
My Spanish is.
We'll try.
Hello, my name is Raul Yavin Purata Davila, and I have other question. I'm a student international management of tourism here in the Universidad del Noreste, and want to ask you, which will be your recommendation to boost your self-esteem and also to have the confidence to talk in public? Because I think that those things can be related with this thing of open up with people in Narrative 4.
Did you?
And I missed the first part of the.
I heard the public speaking part, but not the first part.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. But can you just repeat the first part of the question again?
Which advice would you recommend for someone who wants to boost their confidence?
Well, the saying, public speak. You're talking about public speaking.
And also, yes.
I will tell you, practice. I've been speaking publicly for 30 years, and I still get nervous. I mean, you probably know that public speaking ranks above dying when it comes to absolute fear. But having said that, just practicing little by little. It's like going to the gym. You can't. You're running a marathon. You have to start somewhere and a little at a time. And you all of a sudden, again, it's just like, wow, okay, I just spoke in front of 5 people, 24 people, 100 people. But boosting, it's just practice. It's like empathy and compassion. It's a muscle. You just have to practice, practice, practice. I mean, he's the star.
Yeah, listen, I give speeches now all around the world, but when I was your guys' age, I was terrified. I couldn't stand up there on stage, and yeah, a lot of it is about practice, developing the confidence, but also knowing down deep in your soul that what you're saying is valuable to other people. I think that's really important for you to understand that people actually. It's not just a performance for you yourself. It's a gift that you're giving to other people, and maybe you're opening up their minds in new ways they haven't seen before. And if you can acknowledge it as a gift you're giving, I think that will help. Your speaking, boost your confidence, also help people who are privileged enough to hear it at the same time too. And another trick, sometimes just like take your speech the night before and walk around the room talking to yourself. People will think you're mad, but just practice it and practice delivering it beforehand. And yeah.
And I just, again, Colin was so right. Passion is everything. When you come to the table, you are super. Fundraising is another thing. People are petrified of asking people for money, and I come at it as a position of I'm so fortunate to be able to share this organization with you. I'm so fortunate to convey this message. I am not embarrassed at all about asking money for the power of kids, for the power of students, for the power of artists. Public speaking is a lot less.
Remind me, you owe me $5.
I hope that helped.
Thank you so much for your response.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
I appreciate your question.
Hi, I'm Marta Lara, and I have a question about many times saying yes do not ensure that we can succeed. What advice can you give us to keep trying and after a possible failure? Because many people who dare to try and fail do not trying again for fear of failing again.
That's very wise. In many ways, I think that you've answered your own question. The fear of failure is not something that you can afford to bring you down. It comes back to that Sam Beckett quote: "No matter, try again, fail better." I mean, a part of it is in belief, and you just. I mean, part of the answer is a simple answer and maybe not even a satisfactory answer. You just got to keep going. Now, I will tell you, when I first wrote my novels back in my early 20s, I wrote 3 books that never got published. And for about 3 or 4 years, I failed and failed and failed and failed. But I said I was going to stop sending them out. And then I did stop sending them out, but I kept writing. And that was the important thing. So I think a certain amount of self-belief and the ability to say, I'm going to risk myself. Risk is a really good word.
Calculated risk. And I think the universe too, that I am a big believer. I mean, it sort of points, I went through, before Narrative 4, I went through a really brutal time, in the transition between where I was working before and creating Narrative 4 and thinking, this is a failure. This is going to fail. And every day I was, no, you're doing the right thing. This is right. I go to sleep at night thinking, I'm doing the right thing. This is in my heart. I feel it in my gut. I'm passionate about it. I know it's going to work. I feel like a failure right now. And by the way, not just right now, all of the time, it feels like failure. And then the success comes around the corner and it's like blows away the failure. But those little failures lead. And again, this is the power of disturbing the universe to some extent is, this is probably going to hurt every once in a while. Nothing great happens just sitting around and not feeling pain ever. It's going to happen. You're going to feel like a failure, but that's a hallmark. That is a huge sign of success. People challenging you. Sometimes you create enemies. But the failures always result, in my opinion, in better successes.
It's a great answer. And can I say, I'm looking forward to the next question, but this conference is really so well organized.
I know.
It's kind of great. I
Amazing.
get a chance to see all the faces there. Can we actually just ask for another wave? Fantastic.
Hi, can you hear me? Oh, yeah, they can. All right, my name is Julio. I'm gonna tell you a little bit for me. I had the opportunity to went to Wiley's High School in Wiley, Texas. So I have a question for you. Well, this part, like, I actually was a really good student. Like, I had a GPA of 3.98. Like,
Wow.
it's almost 4. And I didn't get any scholarships or any offer to be like, hey, come to our school. We're gonna support you. We're gonna give you money to keep your education. So I had to come back. Like, I just came back 2 months ago. No, 1.5. So, like, what do you do with this part? Like, I know you're like around the world. So what do you do when the government says no? Like, or there are conservative minds that keep saying like, no, we're gonna stay like this. Or how do you deal with that?
Well, Julio, thank you for that. I'm going to tell you. I told you about all those different failures, but after I started writing, I came back to the United States, and I applied to Columbia University, NYU, University of Texas, all of these colleges. I too had a high GPA, and they all said no. And it got me a little bit angry, but I began to harness that anger in a different way. 10 years later, I was actually teaching at Columbia and teaching at NYU. And all I can tell you that I love the virtues of stamina, desire, and perseverance. And it's wrong that you didn't get acknowledged in the way that you should be acknowledged. But if you have enough stamina and you obviously have the desire and the perseverance, all of that will turn around and will be the most valuable lesson that you can possibly believe.
Yeah, I can't say it any better than that. I mean, the world is it's not equal, and it's very unfair. And part of what we're trying to do is, change, rebuild, and even revolutionize systems. And that does include education to some degree. I mean, I'm not afraid to say it anymore. Narrative, when I first connected kids internationally, the very first story exchange before creating Narrative 4 was kids in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and kids in New Orleans, Louisiana, in the US. And I learned such a valuable lesson right then, that these people were hungry to learn from one another. And there was a new sort of way to educate people and to get them excited about education, but also to change the education system, which is a little stagnant and it is stacked against certain people. So just know that that's part of our mission and vision as well. And we appreciate your story. And yeah, and exactly what Colin says, just
keep trying.
Keep trying.
And I know that I bet I'm going to meet you in a couple of years, and you'll say, "Oh, that was I'm so glad I went back to and got the education." There are reasons for this to happen.
And number of just authors who talk about rejections. I mean, people wallpaper their bathrooms and bedrooms with rejection letters over some of the people who've won Pulitzer Prizes, some of the greatest authors in the world.
Frank McCourt,
just like
68
over and over.
rejections.
So whatever you do, don't stop trying.
Yeah. Did you? There's. Go ahead.
Hi. Now I'm going to read a question from the chat. Hi. Did you ever imagine the impact of Narrative 4 when you received Lee Killock's touching letter?
Thank you for the question. The answer is no. I had no idea. I could never have dreamed that I would be here in October 2023 in New York, talking to you in Mexico, talking about the impact of stories and storytelling. I could never this is a cliche, but I really mean it. I could never in my wildest dreams have believed that it would be so powerful, and that it would be growing in the way that it's growing. I also know that it's been very difficult, and we have got to keep it going in all sorts of ways. But the joy that I get from these sort of moments is life changing for me, and continually life changing. And that's one of the other things that I learned, is that life continues to change. After you're 20, after you're 30, after you're 40, even after you're 50, believe it or not, they can constantly evolve. So I am deeply touched and blessed by the power of what happened. And I look at Lee too. I look at Lee Keelock, and I know he's constantly changing too, and keeps expanding the world.
And I would like to say that I did, because, which makes me sound awesome, but I'm not. The reason I say that is because Lee knows the story column. I was in Chicago at the time, and working in a public school. Maru and Carla certainly, Lee know the teacher, Charles Miles. I was in his classroom, and in and out, and we got. Charles is the one who gave us our first tagline of fearless hope through radical empathy, which is a whole nother story. But I was working with these kids, and Chicago at the time was what they call the murder capital of the United States. And the 26 murders were going, mostly in and around Charles's school, a month. And in Lee's school during the Sandy Hook massacre, 26 people, kids and educators who were killed. And I remember calling me after he'd gotten Lee's letter. His publisher sent it over, and he read it to me. And this is going to sound really morbid, and I apologize for it. But I remember saying to him, "You can die and go to heaven right now." And no, that letter alone is such a powerful testimony to everything you have done and written. Because to be an artist, in my opinion, and to know that somebody like Lee is reaching out in that kind of a way. And so there was something inside of me, when I got together in Sandy Hook with his family, or Newtown too long after that. And Colin told you about going up there. And it just sort of felt like a moment, a really profound lightning bolt moment when Colin read that letter to me. And so I just thought, wait, again, here comes the universe. Something's at play here.
Thank you.
Okay, hi. My name is Liliana. I'm studying industrial engineer. And my question is, how do you imagine Narrative 4 in 10 years?
That's huge. How do you imagine it in 10
years?
years?
Oh, where's it going in 10 years? So our goal, I firmly believe that we will be in every school in the world. And I think that we'll be in a lot of corporations in the world. And I think that every single person on this planet could use Narrative 4 as you see fit in your own communities. This is not about Colum or me or anyone from the United States or Ireland or anywhere else coming into certain communities and saying, this is how it's going to be. This is grassroots. And once it catches on and catches fire, and it already is, clearly, look at what you're doing, then, and educators and administrators see the success rates in schools. Students are having fun. Parents are excited and saying, my child is so happy to show up. Suspension rates are going down. The list goes on and on. I really do think that the power of the story exchange in general, the core methodology of breaking down barriers and shattering stereotypes, it's so desperately needed right now. You can have, one of the things that I've said is, you can have all the money in the world, you can have the best strategy, the best staff, you can have all of this stuff, but timing is everything. And we, for better or for worse, as we all know, we hit the nail on the head when it comes to timing. So I do think that there's a real power and an energy behind Narrative 4 that is going to catapult us and propel us forward and get us into every school in the next 10 years and change a lot of things and rebuild change and revolutionize a lot of different systems, create a lot of, based on the theory of emergence, connect kids all over the world, all kinds of groups all over the world, so that they can enact the change that they want.
I'm going to say on Mars. And if not on Mars, at least on the moon.
We have had a request for a story exchange with aliens. So there's always that. Who knows? Maybe we'll do that within the next 10 years. Nothing's out of the question. And by the way, really, I'm really serious about that. I would put the question back to all of you, because it's really your organization. And we have, yes, we have the vision and we have to set the strategy, but this organization is founded on knowledge management. You know, we say, here's what we've been finding in X, Y, and Z location. And Maru comes back and says, here's what we're finding. And we cross-reference. And so the power is really in your hands as to where you think it's going to be in 10 years. Thank you for that.
Okay,
Today's Lee has told us to break the rules, so we're going to break the rules a little bit. Maybe, and this might be a good spot to sort of wrap it up. Do you have a question that maybe the greater audience here and online can answer in social media, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, or a comment, something you would like to know about our audience here at the university and around Mexico or other parts of the world? What do you think?
I would like everyone to come up with one word that they would like to ship across the world, particularly to places of turmoil right now, and one sort of word, or maybe one sort of phrase of healing to bring us together. Look, one of the things that I'm very conscious of is, in these broken times, there are so many good people, but only the loud ones get the play. It's time for the vast majority of us who sit in good places, and that's not necessarily the middle. It can be the extreme left or the right. I don't care. But those people who are good and have good intentions for the world, to make their voice heard, not be scared. Say something. Reach out to others. Show us that the world is good. Do not let us be cowed into silence, because silence will be the ruin of us.
And I think that's beautifully said. I also would love to hear from the audience and the surrounding community, the entire country. If you could change one thing, anything, and it can be, like we said before, it could be about yourself, it could be about your classroom, your community, your region, the world, what would it be? I told you about Charles Miles, and I asked him about his students in particular that day back in 2013, early 2013, the day that Lee was writing, or Colin received Lee's letter. I said, if you could give your students, and these kids are crossing gang lines to get to school, and it's tough. If you could give your kids anything, what would it be? And it took him a split second to say, hope. That's it. So it can be a one-word answer. It can be a sentence, but I would just love to know, what would you like to change? If you could do it right now, what would you like to change about anything, your world?
And can I just also say that we're finishing up here, that we feel privileged to have been given the chance to talk with you. And I'm deeply grateful for the way that you have asked your questions and the way that you have been involved with everything that's going on. And I hope to see you in person. We are very, very, very grateful.
Taking a chapter out of your book, we know we're going to learn a lot of lessons. We want to be in Mexico with who knows, Maru. We talked about it, Carla and I, what we might be able to do in the future. Who knows? But you're leading the way. You're paving the way. You're so wonderful for speaking to us in English. Apologies. I will brush up on my Spanish. which is going to take a lot. But we are really, really grateful. And it's just, again, a huge shout out to the entire team there, Maru, Carla, Santiago, all of you, Lee, your special speaker, and all of you for being for giving us the honor of being with you today. And I hope you'll stay engaged with Narrative 4 and tell us what you see, what you want to do, and how we can change and improve.
Thank you.
Thank you. So to our live audience and also our online audience, make sure you go to social media, Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, and answer the question. A word or phrase that would allow for healing or something you would like to see change. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa and Colum.
Thank you all so much. Gracias. Hasta luego. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Ahorita. Quiero expresar nuestro más profundo agradecimiento a nuestros oradores, Colum McCann y Lisa Consiglio, por compartir su tiempo, sabiduría y pasión con nosotros hoy. Sus ideas han iluminado nuestro camino e inspirado a ser mejores narradores y oyentes empáticos. I would like to extend our deepest appreciation to our speakers, Colum McCann